Okay, welcome everyone to my podcast, the Jallah show this morning. Yes, we definitely rolled out this discussion platform last week, which was basically just a dress rehearsal, merely just laying out the design and structure and scope of this discussion forum of this podcast of mine. This is basically, like I said last time, my contribution to uh, the national discourse, specifically in a way trying to begin to improve the quality of conversation happening in the country and really cutting to the chase and in a real educational way, contributing to the national conversation and improving learning as a matter of fact. Um, so we have as our discussion today, our focus is basically on the Nigerian elections. Nigeria decides, and Nigeria plays a very, very critical geopolitical position in the West African region, uh, largely also on the level of the African continent. And on the global stage, Nigeria remains a real essential critical player in geopolitics, in issues around global security, issues around economic development, and also in terms of the nature of political happiness on the global stage. So Nigeria is a massive, massive, massive player in the grand scheme of things on the global stage, on the continental level, on the context of the African continent. But if you move specifically, particularly on the level, on the sub-regional level, on the level of the West African context, a place where Liberia comes in the entire matter. So today we will be taking a closer look at what is unfolding in Nigeria today, the implication on the West African sub-region, and also how that weigh in with the Liberian context. As a matter of fact, we're in similar electoral situation. We do have national elections coming up, legislative and presidential elections coming up in Liberia in later part of the year, October to be precise. And some observers have said what is transpiring in Nigeria bears stark resemblance to what may unfold in Liberia in October. This may or may not be accurate. There are stark similarities, but there are sharp differences also with the Nigerian context. The political culture in Nigeria is maybe heavily different from Liberia, but who says, there are always similarities as well as differences. So we will explore the vast, differences, sharp differences within the Nigerian context, based on the political lay of the land in Nigeria, which will be slightly different or remarkably different from the lay of the land, politically speaking, in Liberia. So let's go into matters. Again, like I said, things are unfolding quite dramatically in Nigeria. I think by the close of the evening yesterday, former President Olusegun Obasanjo issued a statement, and that statement was a very sharp condemnation of INEC, the National Electoral Body in Nigeria, and their handling of the polls. He brought to light some of the gross irregularities that have marred the Nigerian electoral process. The Elections Commission of Nigeria had previously promised that this was going to be a hugely digital elections, and that the Nigerian government had invested millions and millions of dollars in trying to build a digital infrastructure that INEC promised will have once and for all, if not dramatically curtailed, but significantly minimized the extent of voter fraud that have dominated and characterized Nigerian elections in the past. This is a flashpoint in Nigerian elections, particularly talking about former President Olusegun Obasanjo, a very popular, powerful mover and shaker in Nigerian politics. coming with a stinking critique and also condemnation of the polls. Olusegun Obasanjo, former president, has called on Muhammadu Buhari to cancel election results in parts of the country that were marked by what he referred to as voter fraud or a wholesale criminality of the elections. We heard news through networks how ballot boxes were snatched, how gangs across the country undermined a very efficient delivery of the elections in some parts of the country. So this is, as you know, the news have said, this is extremely unprecedented in Nigerian electoral history for a former Nigerian president to come with sort of scathing condemnation of the polls. How this will pan out in the coming days and weeks, we don't know for sure, but things are, you know, real bubbling to the surface currently in Nigeria. Tensions are high. We hope the government and all the players in this democratic process can step in and prevent any security deterioration in Nigeria. Nigeria has had its fair share of security challenges in the past. This is something we'll come to in more specific detail as this discussion unfolds. We do not need any further escalation of the security situation in Nigeria. As a matter of fact, any escalation in matters of that nature will always have reverberating effect on the sub-region as a whole. So we don't want any further deterioration of the situation in Nigeria. So much so for Olusegun Obasanjo's statement. We've also seen the European Union issue statements around the conduct of the polls, statements that have been less than satisfactory. The African Union have said, including the ECOWAS, that these elections have been largely free, fair, and transparent, despite the fact that you know, these regional, sub-regional, and regional bodies have recognized irregularities also across Nigeria, across the Nigerian elections this year. So yeah, generally speaking, that is the situation. Broadly speaking, that is the situation right now, with the post-elections comments coming from regional bodies. So maybe we basically talk about just, you know, stepping back a little bit to talk about the context of the candidates who've been running these elections. The results will continue to trickle in as we move along. BBC is reporting that Peter Obi, who is the standard bearer of the Labour Party in these elections, who's basically not a newcomer to Nigerian elections, to politics in Nigeria, and also running on a very popular movement that is being referred to as the Obedient movement, which is named after him, Obedient, and he's currently enjoys massive support amongst Nigerian youth and mainly urban centers, currently leading the polls in Lagos State. The initial results trickling in have shown, but these are still quite early times. As a matter of fact, you will know that around 87 million registered voters are out in these elections, and it close to over 30 billion of electoral voters, specifically young people. So many observers have said Obi tend to enjoy a popular support among young people, and the statistical fraction of registered voter 87 million is around, young people constitute around 30 million voters as a matter of fact, two-thirds of the vote, of registered voters in this election. How these results will pan out, we are yet to see. Observers have said these elections are extremely close to call. So we'll see. Political observers and Nigerians and those interested in elections, including Liberians, are on the edge. So we'll see how this result pan out in the coming days and potentially weeks. No matter how these elections pan out, a certain critical aspect will have to be brought to focus, and this is where this discussion today will shine more light. Will place the floodlight on whoever wins this election, whether it's Peter Obi of the Labour Party, whether it's Mr. Tinubu, who currently runs on the ruling party ticket, the APC, which is a party of Muhammadu Buhari, who enjoyed a two-term presidential win after defeating Goodluck Jonathan of the PDP. That was in 2015. He's had 2 successful terms. He also ran for re-elections after 4 years and won. Atiku Abubakar, of course, also of the PDP. So he has limits on the possibility of running. That is the reason why we have former Lagos Governor Tinubu currently running on the APC ticket. Tinubu is, of course, 2-time governor of Lagos State. After Nigeria returned to democratic electoral rule and the passing of Sani Abacha, he came back to the country after moving into exile and fell into trouble with the authorities and the leadership of Abacha. Went into exile as part of a big population of exile politicians of the movement in a period of the dictatorship of Abacha. Of course, returned to the country in the period of 1999. Ran for the elections, governor of Lagos State, won those elections, 2-term governor, and then tenure expired in 2007. So Tinubu, as a matter of fact, has been a major electoral player. He has had, he's been credited for establishing economic prosperity for Lagos State, making Lagos State one of, in fact, statistics show as the richest and the wealthiest state in Nigeria. So he's been a major player in Nigerian political life. He's been credited for the political future, political career of many Nigerian politicians, including the current vice president current vice president of Nigeria, who's vice president to Muhammadu Buhari. He's also been, credited for, midwifing the political career of many governors of Lagos State, those who were not in tune with his political direction in Lagos State had all sorts of political roadblocks were placed in their way. Some of them had to be impeached. Some of them had to leave the governorship of Lagos State. Those who were in sync with him were square with him politically, had flourishing career in Lagos State. Also, all sorts of attributions have been made to him being responsible for the success of different political actors' career in Nigeria. Of course, he's not gone without his own fair share of accusation for public corruption. He was in one time in trouble with the Americans with a couple of swindling case with the Americans. And at one point in time, there were quite an investigation by the FBI over a money laundering case of a partner of his. So death past allegation in Nigeria of corruption, he has not really been brought down guilty by any competent court of jurisdiction, particularly in Nigerian court. So that is the case with Bola Tinubu, who currently is standard bearer of the APC, has been heavily backed by Muhammadu Buhari on the campaign trail before the polls open up on the 25th of February, as a matter of fact. What do we know about Atiku Abubakar? Well, Atiku Abubakar is also a prominent Nigerian politician. As with Mr. Tinubu, both of them are in the 70s, represent the older generation of Nigerian politicians. Many young people in Nigeria have said, well, we need a seismic shift away from the older generation of Nigerian politicians. We do want a younger person at the helm of Nigerian political life. But yeah, the population still has to deal with an older political class. So both Mr. Tinubu and Atiku Abubakar are in their 70s and currently contesting for this election. Atiku Abubakar, as we've seen, any close observer of Nigerian elections will know, has been a permanent fixture in Nigerian political life since the advent of popular democratic rule in Nigeria, the passing of Abacha, the winning of elections of Olusegun Obasanjo. These actors have been very prominent on the political stage. Of course, Atiku Abubakar was two-time vice president to Olusegun Obasanjo. Fell out, of course, Obasanjo after the end of Obasanjo two-term reign. And we know that Obasanjo heavily backed Omaru Yaradua in those elections. And of course, Yaradua came to power right after Obasanjo two times. And of course, fell ill during his first term, and Goodluck Jonathan, who had Goodluck his way, winning those elections. And then, of course, ending that turn and then winning an elections on his own accord, and definitely lost to Muhammadu Buhari. Yeah, so just to switch the pendulum, of course, over to Abubakar. He's been running in every single election since Obasanjo left power. He has not had a lot electoral lot coming his way, and now in this election he's challenging again, and of course promising to lay out a raft of different reform measures across Nigeria's economic security life, particularly mainly speaking about reconciliation, bringing the country together. Nigeria has its own fair share of massive seismic differences between different ethnic groups and different classes. And this is a country deeply divided along political lines, and these fault lines are being made extremely sharp and vivid along also differences across tribal lines. So he's promised to reconcile Nigeria and then use his experience of the Nigerian political landscape and political life to bring the country back together. And of course, he also promised a whole range of promises around economic reform, reforming Nigeria economic life. Currently, the Nigerian economy is suffering enormous sickness. It is disease ridden. This is something we'll come to later on and try to explore what is the current health of the Nigerian economy. Maybe we can speak about that as a matter of fact currently. So, of course, we know Nigeria currently is experiencing massive inflationary spiral. Full inflation in Nigeria currently stands at 24%, advanced double-digit inflation. The Nigerian currency is currently suffering. The central bank has moved to rescue the currency due to declining extremely high and increasingly declining access to foreign currency in Nigeria due to Nigeria's inability to actually benefit from rising fuel prices. Currently, the price of petroleum product in the market is enjoying healthy figures, but Nigeria is being grossly unable to benefit from rising prices. What's the reason for that? This is because of crippling oil infrastructure currently today. We have security challenges in Nigeria, as you know, in the northeast. We have the situation of Boko Haram, and not only even Boko Haram, but vandalism in many parts of Nigeria today, especially along the oil exploitation sector, especially areas in Nigeria that currently Nigeria depends on to exploit oil resources for export. We've seen in the news, plaster all over the news over the past several months and years, cases of insecurity across pipelines. We've had issues of vandalism. We've had issues of theft, which currently continue to hamstring Nigeria's ability to exploit its oil resources. So Nigeria is currently experiencing declining access to oil export, though many of the substantial quantity of Nigerian export of the Nigerian oil industry is basically focused on exportation of oil. The NNPC, which is the Nigerian Authority for Petroleum Export and the Petroleum Corporation, reported last year, I was just looking at the statistics not too long ago, 2022 alone, that the Nigerian government spent around 10 billion US dollars, several trillion Nigerian naira, but of course 10 billion United States dollar was spent last year alone on paying for fuel subsidy. So this whole question of fuel subsidy has been a major bottleneck, and I would call it even an albatross hanging on the neck of Nigerian public finance. This government has been trying to really finance this subsidy, spending massive amount of public resources on financing the gap between trying to cap oil prices in Nigeria and paying the differential amount of $10 billion last year alone to account for differences in international oil price and trying to meet the price cap in Nigeria. So can you imagine the amount of massive hole that is being blown in the Nigerian public finance just trying to finance this oil subsidy of $10 billion? As we've seen in the past, even the Muhammadu Buhari administration, the Minister of Finance, Finance Minister Ahmed reported, a couple of weeks ago that Nigerian public finance has been really affected, and the public finance have suffered enormously over the past years trying to finance this deficit. So it's a big black hole has been blown into the Nigerian public finance, needed due to a combination of two major factors. One, because the government has to really finance this public subsidy, this oil subsidy of $10 billion on a regular basis last year alone. And two, the Nigerian economy hasn't been able to correspondingly remain healthy to account or to guarantee the flow of revenue in the oil exploitation sector to be able to have the financing responsible to finance this public subsidy. So on one hand, the economy, the budget, the public finance is leaking billions of dollars of public finance or public money to try to finance this finance this subsidy. But the question now is, where do they find the resources from to finance the subsidy? If on the revenue side of the budget, they're not able to really get badly needed public revenue from oil export due to crippling oil infrastructure, the question is, where do they find the money from? There is no magic money tree anywhere. The finance minister of Muhammadu Buhari has to pluck resources from the clear buska to finance the public subsidy, the oil subsidy they have to finance. So what is being left? Nigerian public finance is being left into tatters because they're not able to really mobilize the resources, and this is a country heavily dependent on oil revenue, on export of raw oil, on petroleum products in this crude form to finance this public subsidy. So this has fundamentally thrown into a disequilibrium to public finance. They are not able to raise revenue on one side from export of raw of petroleum products in this crude form. They're not able to find the resources on their hand to be able to finance the massive public subsidy, the massive oil subsidy. So that is one chronic disease that currently affects the Nigerian public finance on one hand, financing the oil subsidy. On the other hand, the economy has really suffered. Again, I was looking at the statistics. Foreign direct investment in Nigeria has significantly declined compared to pre-Muhammadu Buhari period. Statistics shows that foreign direct investment was around $2 billion before Buhari. Currently, that has significantly declined by a massive figure. Currently, statistics show around $600 million. So you see that even in terms of foreign direct investment, the flow of investment to the country has significantly shrunk. Nigeria is not currently enjoying such a healthy amount of foreign direct investment enjoyed pre-Buhari era. A range of different factors are responsible for that. Of course, the security situation in Nigeria has significantly deteriorated. Well, to be clear and fair to Buhari, we had the crisis of Boko Haram well before the coming of Buhari. Muhammadu Yar'Adua faced that menace of a security situation in Nigeria. Goodluck Jonathan tried to tackle the situation of Boko Haram and declining national security. Buhari, in fact, ran a very elaborate campaign on tackling Boko Haram. He said that he had the solution to finally tackle and annihilate this group that was undermining national security in Nigeria. And of course, as we know, the popular saying goes that money doesn't like noise. So once we had Boko Haram causing insecurity, and not only even Boko Haram, but even herdsmen, in most part of the south, southwest, southeast, they currently rampage in the country. I can remember last year I was visiting Nigeria and flew to Jos and Plateau State. And well, even during my time, colleagues that I met there had always bemoaned the fact that the security condition even in that part of the country. We're talking about the south here, where Boko Haram does not even have activity quite prevalent, because Boko Haram is in the northeast part of the country. So even down the south, that was even known to be areas that enjoy relative calm or even better security conditions to most part of the northern region, have had its own fair share of security challenges in recent years. Herdsmen are rampaging in the country, mainly in the south. In fact, I had to fly from Nigeria on a local flight because I was significantly warned that traveling on the road between Abuja to Jos to Plateau State was not advised, was not something advised security-wise. So many commuters had to fly. So you know what that means for the movement of goods and services. If entrepreneurs, if business people, if agriculture producers, if producers of goods and services on the economic level face high cost of movement of goods and services due to security concerns, you definitely know what that means for the cost of produce to consumers, and also the structure of economic life. Our consumers will now have to pay a higher cost for goods and services because of the security cost the movement of goods have already on those produce. So that would mean high cost of living for Nigerians. It will mean higher prices. It will mean challenges with poverty. More and more people will be slipping into poverty, and that's the reason why Nigeria currently today suffer a big crisis of increasing poverty, and of course high level of insecurity, and of course challenges today with economic conditions today in Nigeria. So this is a big bowl of spaghetti that Nigeria have to, for challenges that Nigeria have to face. And whoever comes to the realm of leadership in Nigeria, whether it's Mr. Bola Tinubu of the APC, whether it is Peter Obi, the Obedient Movement of the Labour Party, or whether it's Atiku Abubakar, Mr. Articulate, whoever comes to power today, we have to face a massive challenge on the economic level that I have laid out already, a decline in the public finance. Nigeria have to deal with that situation. Shrinking GDP, productivity in Nigeria is currently suffering due to a panoply of issues that I've laid out already. Challenges with security, an aging infrastructure within the oil sector that is currently massively challenging Nigeria's ability to get into value addition. Nigeria is not even able to add value to its crude oil export because of a massive challenge to Nigerian oil infrastructure. So the new Nigerian president will have to face that massive challenge. We heard Peter Obi on the campaign trail, of course, talk about abolishing the oil subsidy. Well, that may sound a lofty promise, but if we reduce that to practicalities and really pull the rhetoric aside and look at the practicalities around that to see how viable that promise is, we will have to see. Because, of course, Nigerian presidents have had to deal with that, with such a massive catch-22 situation with the oil subsidy. this whole popular saying, you damn if you do, and you also damn if you don't. If you remove the subsidy, the Nigerian, any Nigerian president who removes the oil subsidy will have to smell the coffee. We'll have to bite the bullet to do that. Why? Because that would definitely mean rising prices in the cost of petroleum products, and Nigeria have got a very active labor movement. That may mean protests on the streets. That may mean increase in living standard for Nigerians, for the Nigerian population of over 200 million people. Is the coming Nigerian president, whether it's Peter Obi who's promising to abolish the oil subsidy, is he able to deal with the potential political fallout that may create in Nigeria? Is he able to deal with the rising cost of living that the removal of the fuel subsidy might cost to the Nigerian population? This will create massive challenges on the street for the next president of Nigeria, for Peter Obi, if he dares to do that. How is he going to deal with that very, very tight macroeconomic situation of removing the oil subsidy? That will, of course, create a fair share of security concerns also for him. Because if you have citizens coming on the street, the labor union challenging the abolition of oil subsidy, what would that be for governance in Nigeria under Peter Obi or any Nigerian president? That's one. On two, the observer have said, well, maybe removing the oil subsidy is a viable, productive policy road to travel, because people are saying, well, $10 billion on expenditure on oil subsidy. I was having this discussion yesterday with colleagues of the Liberian Ministry of Finance. Someone said, look, maybe this whole talk of oil subsidy may be marred by wholesale corruption in the first place. Even actors in Nigeria have argued that. Well, people say, well, the oil subsidies are in the tune of $10 billion, but are they really, is the government actually spending this $10 billion? Is this $10 billion oil subsidy thing not also a victim of public corruption in Nigeria? But of course, the next Nigerian president will have to deal with that situation head on, whether continue to dig massive hole in the public finance and financing this massive oil subsidy, or redirect or cutting up this subsidy at a gradual incremental level, or abruptly doing that, and then maybe reinvesting such resources into expanding agricultural productivity in Nigeria, and also investing in young people in a country that has a massive population of young people, and also, and of course, a dire need of financing and resources to invest in critical sectors of the economy, which is whether it's in the oil infrastructure, whether it's even investing in road infrastructure in Nigeria, youth unemployment, dealing with that important crisis of youth unemployment, and investing also in agriculture and services and in the productive sectors of the Nigerian economy. So the next Nigerian president will have to deal head on with those challenges. So let me just conclude basically on an important aspect of Nigeria. So I've said quite a lot about Nigeria domestically and some of the challenges the incoming president will have to deal with on the domestic front. But also going beyond the domestic front, Nigeria is a big regional player. The population of Nigeria is over about 200 million people. The population in West Africa alone, where Liberia operate within the sub-regional bloc in the ECOWAS region, is around, well, some put it at 360 million. Nigeria alone constitutes about 200 million of the population in West Africa. So you know how Nigeria continue to influence the sub-region ECOWAS, not only in terms of not only in demographic terms, in terms of population size, but also in economic terms. Nigeria has the largest economy, single largest economy in West Africa. So on the level of regional economic terms, Nigeria may continue to remain a massive, indispensable player in the ECOWAS sub-region. Even in terms of security time, sub-regional security. From the perspective of sub-regional security, Nigeria remains also an indispensable security player in the region, very critical strategic security alliance in the region. We all know the role of Nigeria in ECOWAS security alliance. We know the role of Nigeria in Liberia, in the Liberian peace process. When Liberia collapsed in flames, Nigeria played an indispensable, a very critical, vitally critical role in restoring peace in Liberia, committing troops to the Liberia war effort, not only committing soldiers in Liberia, but also committing gargantuan amount of resources in the Liberia war effort. So we see Nigeria role, indispensable role, I would put it at that, in sub-regional security in the ECOWAS region. Not only Liberia, but even in terms of security effort in most part of West Africa. We saw when even Olusegun Obasanjo was president of Nigeria, he led a loud voice in the ECOWAS sub-region in avoiding the undermining of democratic rule in the West African region. ECOWAS was able, and Nigeria played a frontal role in that initiative. ECOWAS was able to establish that, well, as far as the sub-regional body ECOWAS is concerned, violent overthrow and the abortion of democratic rule in the African continent was a no-no, particularly in the West African sub-region was a no-no, and that ECOWAS was in no mood to back or to do business with any violent overthrow or subversion of democratic rule in the ECOWAS sub-region. So Nigeria played a major policy role in instituting that as a regional policy. So Nigeria has played a very critical role in establishing, fostering, and even strengthening and deepening democratic rule in the West African sub-region. So Nigeria has a vitally important and critical role, I will emphasize, to play in regional democratic governance. So we are very much interested as a member of the ECOWAS regional body, as Liberia is, in Nigerian stability. So deepening democratic values and culture in Nigeria has enormous implication and benefit from the entire West African region as a whole. So that's why when elections are happening in Nigeria, we as a regional actor, as Liberia is historical player in the ECOWAS region, we are very much interested in what happens in Nigeria, because the fostering of democracy in Nigeria means the strengthening of democracy across the ECOWAS region. So we're looking forward to Nigeria continuing to consolidate, to deepen, to strengthen, to continue for democratic life to pervade all aspects of Nigeria political life, so that Nigeria can be in the right democratic state to continue to impact and support democratic development in much part of the ECOWAS region. On the security level, we are also, as a member state of ECOWAS, Liberia is, and also as a regional body ECOWAS, this entire region is also very much interested in peace and security in Nigeria as a matter of fact, because if Nigerian security is strengthened, if Nigeria enjoys peace and tranquility, that will mean Nigeria is able to save enough financing, enough resources to continue to invest in the security infrastructure in the ECOWAS region. Because as we know, for example, alone, security efforts with Boko Haram, security efforts in much part of Nigeria, insecurity in your area require enormous amount of budget resources on the part of Nigeria to finance these security operations in those areas. Peace and security in Nigeria will mean that Nigerian public finance is able to enjoy lapses, to enjoy freedom. Nigeria is now able to free up enough and additional resources to invest in security effort in the ECOWAS region. So we are very much interested in Nigeria security life, and peace and security also in Nigeria. These have again ripple over effect on peace and security in the ECOWAS region. On the economic level, of course, we definitely also have enormous interest in Nigeria economic prosperity, because economic prosperity in Nigeria means potential economic prosperity, it must mean much part of the ECOWAS in most ECOWAS region as a whole. So Nigeria, whatever happens in Nigeria, like I've proven here, ranging all over the map of Nigeria, economics, security, political wise, governance has got enormous impact on the ECOWAS region. As a matter of fact, Nigeria invests enormous resources in financing the African Development Bank, in providing country quota to that bank, also in providing security quota. Nigeria always pay the lion's share of ECOWAS security initiative and endeavor. Even in terms of regional cooperation and running the ECOWAS regional body, Nigeria invests quite substantial amount of resources in financing the activity of ECOWAS. And ECOWAS, of course, is involved in all sorts of regional projects, cross-country infrastructure development in roads, in agriculture, investing in those areas. And a healthy Nigerian economy definitely means a healthy ECOWAS, a healthy sub-regional body and prosperity for the entire